Good afternoon. Welcome to Chairboys Live, episode 16. And I hope you can hear us because a couple of technical problems, which I'm going to resolve in a moment once I've got Pete in the show. Thank you to all the comments, everyone so far. Adam, Sean, Lee, Steve, Tyler, John, Graham, and here we all are. Robin, was that you getting excited? Wycombe Wanderers getting promoted. Yeah, I think we've all lost our voices in the past couple of weeks. Thank you so much for joining us. A couple of things we need to tell you before we get going with our guests. First of all, the trophy has been on display at the Eden Shopping Centre yesterday and today, and it will be back here at Adams Park tomorrow between 11 and 3. So do come down. There'll be social distancing, and please do bring a mask as well. With the shop being open, we're obviously following the government protocols now, so do come along and bring your mask. And also at the same time, the new season, we have a start date. The 12th of September will be when we begin our championship campaign, or at least that weekend. Obviously, we'll wait to see the fixtures and any television dates that will come our way. But the 12th of September is when the new EFL season will start, and we're very much looking forward to that date and beginning life in the second tier for the very first time in our history. Thank you to everyone that's leaving comments. Ross can hear us loud and clear from Oslo. This all worked during the warm-up, of course, but once you go live, this is the joys of live broadcasting. So I'm going to try and get things working on my laptop while we can. Thank you to Donna. I saw Donna was down at the Eden Shopping Centre today with her daughter, enjoying a photo with the trophy, and it's been great to see the great interest really in everybody having their photos taken, both here at Adams Park and from the Eden Shopping Centre as well. And you know, hopefully this is a real sign of the town uniting behind its football club. I'm going to call into the room Mr. Pete Couig. Pete, you there?
Yeah, you're right.
I'm good. I've had a couple of.
Can you hear me in the
issues,
back?
So I'm just
Can you hear me in the back?
Say it louder. Say it louder. I just about managed to get things working on my phone, but a couple of laptop issues, which I'm going to try and resolve. After all of my ribbing of some of the directors on Monday's show, not being able to get the microphone work, and me saying that the youth of today would never have that problem, and then look at me, here I am. Pete, this is your first Chairboys Live since Wembley. How have the past 11 days been for you?
11 days? It's been like a blur.
Yeah.
First couple of days were spent celebrating to a certain extent. Then Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, I probably put 40, 50, 60 hours of work in. Continued Saturday, continued Sunday. Well, Friday I took a little bit of break to go to the Hage Run with the Mayo Blues. Continued a little bit of celebrating with the boys. And then went up to St. Andrews with Neil Harmon, worked during the day, and played a round of golf each evening. Had a wonderful trip. It's just been every once in a while I gotta pinch myself that we've got to get ready for the championship.
The main question that's been asked so far in the comments is, are we using this episode of Chairboys Live to announce any new signings? I don't know if you've got anybody hiding behind the desk or behind the corner, but I'm in the gaffer's office and there's no sign of player contracts or anything here at the moment.
Nah, the people just need to have patience. We're working on it.
Absolutely. This will be where all of our viewers now log out, you see. Everybody turned up expecting a little Friday news announcement. Sorry to disappoint, but we do have some very special guests lined up. They'll be along in just a moment. Hopefully, if I can get things fired up on the laptop, we'll be good to go. I mean, obviously, the start date of the season's been announced today, Pete, 12th of September. There's not much of July left, and by the time we get to August, it's going to feel pretty close. You know, you've seen firsthand the energy and all the effort that's going in the office at the moment. Celebrations, unfortunately, seem pretty firmly behind us because there's a hell of a lot of work to do now.
Yeah, you know, as most people are aware, there are certain requirements for championship football that we're putting in place right now. We've already ordered the light upgrade. Currently, I think we're at about 550 lux, and we got to get to 800. Otherwise, we'll get fined. Hawkeye Technologies going in for the goal line technology. Matt's department, the media section, has to be upgraded substantially. We're working on, upgrading the Cheerboys Village. there's a million things that 10 or 11 people are trying to get done.
It has been nuts. You're in regular contact with the gaffer. How's he getting on? Because he's certainly not on a beach at the moment, basking in the celebrations, is he?
No, and normally between the end of the playoffs and the beginning of the preseason, there's a much more extended time frame, and it is just, we had to move immediately from focusing on the playoffs to preparing for next year. I mean, no time off whatsoever for the business staff and the football staff. I think the boys are enjoying the couple of days off, but they'll be back soon as well.
Absolutely. Well, we're about to welcome into the room a guest. Again, some shout outs to everybody who is leaving comments at the moment. But if we welcome into the room somebody who's been part of this club's journey for a number of years and it remains very much actively involved at the moment. So if this works, I believe Andrew's here. Andrew, how are you doing?
Yeah, very good, thank you.
Good stuff. You've got better technical capabilities than I have right now.
Yeah, I've even got a logo above me. I mean, how cool is that?
That is pretty high tech. Andrew, you came into Wycombe Wanderers Football Club. I think firstly the role was kind of commercial director, but very quickly it was chairman, summer of 2014. We had just survived relegation by the very skin of our teeth against Torquay at the bottom end of League Two. To sit here now involved with the club in the Championship, I wouldn't say you're amazed or surprised because I know you've always believed in the club's capability, but just how impressed and proud have you been to have played your part in and observed that journey that the club have taken?
Well, I think the pride's for the club. I think the pride's for, Gareth and Dobber and the whole coaching staff that have put a fantastic team together, and the pride for the group of people behind the scenes that have begged, borrowed, stolen, done whatever we've had to do to get to the club where it is, to hand it over to the right people. So, but I mean, the biggest pride was just watching the lads do the job last Monday. I mean, that's you look at JJ and Cedo and a lot of the guys that we were in Monty's bar the first thing I went to, very early doors. I remember meeting the guys for the first time and they were in for the first time. So, I know Matt's been here since I think the Arc was built. So I mean, he's been a while, but for people like JJ, that we all started the journey at the same time.
And as you say, you were there at Wembley. You've been around the place and seen the playoffs. Now, I spoke to you at half-time of the Fleetwood game, and I think you could tell the nerves that I had watching that game. You always have quite a calm complexion. I remember a story about your heart rate at the Wembley final in 2015 was pretty steady. Now, I know for obviously a racing driver, you have to keep calm during the thrills and spills of live sport, but you don't tend to watch the games with the same intensity that we do, which I always find fascinating.
But that was never my job. I'm not a footballing guru. I'm a person that builds businesses, works with people. So for me, I never look at a pitch and go, oh my God, the formation's wrong, or what's he doing? I'm looking at a pitch going, why the hell's he not sweating enough? Why is he not throwing himself and doing whatever? So, and I listen, it's not my job to get stressed. It's our job is to get stressed to make sure everything's in place. Once the whistle goes to start with, there's not a lot we can really do. We can shout, we can yell, we can cheer. But after that, I think we've got a pretty good group of people that we can put our trust in. I
got to point out, Andrew was one of the biggest cheerleaders we had, Fleetwood away and at the matches. So maybe he wasn't as calm as normal. Given the fact that we were given a directive by Gareth to shout as loud as we could, support the boys, and really try to be as loud as Chair Boys away would normally be. And I can guarantee you this, Andrew gave a great effort on that front for sure.
It was incredible, over the years, the away supporters got louder and louder. If I think back the first season, and then towards the last 2 or 3 seasons, they got louder and louder. And you're dead right. Gareth said to us, we need to shout, the subs need to shout, everybody needs to shout, make the encouragement. And if somebody says, there you go for 90 minutes and shout your heart out in the middle of Wembley when there's only, 15 of us there, what a fantastic excuse to yell for 90 minutes. I think at times we got a bit of rhythm going.
100%. 100%. Although I didn't need an excuse to get loud. I'm generally that way.
So I had one of the FL guys contact me the next morning, and he said it was terrifying to watch the small group of Wycombe people compared to the Oxford people. He said the noise coming out of you lot was absolutely terrifying. He said it was just unbelievable. So, and that's what we're there for. We're representing a lot of people that day, weren't we?
Yes, we were.
Andrew, part of the reason you're joining us today, I mean, it was in early March, I think, that it was announced that you were remaining or returning to the club rather in a position alongside the football management staff. And today we can confirm that role continues under the name of sporting consultant, working alongside Gareth, Dobbo and Pete. How good is it, firstly, to be back? And what kind of thing does that entail now going forward?
Hey, listen, it's fabulous to be back. And, from my point of view, being able to get back involved in negotiations, get involved in, understanding. It's the same old story. I was talking to Hugh Jenkins at Swansea when we played them in a friendly, and I said, it must be really easy for you having so much money and being able to do what you want. He said, no, it's exactly the same as you. It's just got more noughts on the end. He said, we're still, I think it was was it Wilfred Bonney or they had a player and they'd worked all their time to get him right. Premiership higher club came in, higher at the pecking order, just took him. Our job is to maximise whatever money is spent on the playing side and get the best possible performance out of that money. And every single pound that goes in has got to have a value. And that's where I see part of my role is helping to get the best possible value out of that investment.
I think in the years that you've been involved with the club, we've seen some incredible names come into the club. And I'm sure there are so many twisted tales that you probably can't tell us about of negotiations with chairmen and agents. And I think the one that people will always return to is Alfie Mawson in 2015, a kid that nobody had really heard of before he came into Wycombe. And there he was having the season of his life. And he was almost a permanent chairboy, but maybe took the wrong opportunity for us to showcase himself.
He was. The night we went to Luton, I'd done a deal with Brentford for him to come into us. And, not talking about the figures or anything, but we had a deal. And I remember talking to the CEO at Brentford, and before we went to Luton, he said, yeah, all done. And we have a phenomenal relationship with certain clubs, and Brentford has always been one of them. They're a phenomenal group of people to work with. And of course, he scored the goal, didn't he? Hazy flicked it over, off he went, scored the goal. Oh my God. And Brentford phoned me and he said, look, Andrew, we'll support you all we can, but we just had an offer 3 times the size of your offer. He said, there is no way, and there's no way we could, do anything. But literally for that first half of that match, Alfie Mawson was going to come and sign for Wycombe the following day. But look what he's gone on to. And he was going to give up football. The summer before he came to us, he talked about giving up football. So look what Dobbo and Gareth did with him. And he was just imperious, wasn't he? What a player.
And another thing I think that really came to the fore back in 2014 has continued throughout the development days. Now, I remember the first ever development day, and this was brand new to Wycombe Wanderers. And you had the whole squad sent outside the training ground building. They ran in with, it was kind of like a mob mentality of togetherness and a real show of togetherness. And I remember not being quite clear of the purpose of it. And then that year, I remember there was the trip to the Somme. There was work in your ice cream factory, I believe. Earlier this season, the team did the Haka. There have been so many wonderful days. And the show of togetherness is one thing, but from your perspective, and I know it was something that you recommended and Gareth and Dobbo really took into account straight away. I mean, how good has it been to see the players bonding together in moments like that, completely away from the football pitch?
I think that first season we were in a siege mentality, weren't we? we'd gone in. We had a group of people who had been to Hell and back the season before. A lot of change. I mean, you should never change a team as much as was changed in that summer, but we had to change it, and Gareth had already started doing that. And I think the idea was to a certain point get some inhibitions down. I remember, all the players were standing outside, and we were playing One Republic, and there's about this 15-second gap at the beginning, and I said to them, right, you lot, you're all going to run in, and I want you to scream and yell. I want all your inhibitions out, and this is what we're going to do. No. So the first time they did it, it was just lousy. And I remember there was Woody and all these people. One of them was injured. I can't remember who was injured, but somebody was injured. And then, anyway, after 3 attempts, because I kept sending them out, they came running. And not only that, they were carrying the injured one. They were running, yelling. And the whole point was to build this camaraderie, but also resilience. We wanted them to be resilient to anything around them, any criticism, anything. And that's really the development days for us. We're about this psychological strength. Dobbo will talk about this, but this psychological strength, the resilience. And if you look the season before, how many times did they concede goals from 86 to 88 minutes? And if you actually analysed it, a lot of the time the team was switching off right at the end of the game, and then they were getting hammered. And what we were trying to get them to do all the way through was to say, look, I don't care when the whistle goes. You keep playing until you walk back to the dressing room. And it was it's brilliant. I mean, that team aspect is just stunning. And didn't they show it? Haven't they shown it? Haven't they continued to show it?
This is absolutely one of the big reasons why we wanted to bring Andrew back. His experience with dealing with agents is going to be critical. But the development days, that was one of the most impressive things that we saw early on. And when Gareth and Dobbo told me the history behind it, and everything that Andrew had done on that front, it's really, when you talk about the special changing room that this club has and how that bleeds down from Gareth and Dobbo, Andrew was critical in the development of that, and they continued it, when Andrew was gone for a brief bit. But that's absolutely something we see him working with Dobbo and Gareth and myself on in the future.
Absolutely. My internet's playing up a little bit, and hopefully your guys is okay at your end. Our next guest is in the waiting room, Andrew. So
okay.
I'm going to thank you so much for coming on the show. And as I say, congratulations. It's great to have you back amongst the fold. The last question I had for you, obviously, having been chairman of the club, I know you met Rob last summer and were very intrigued by his plans. Was there any advice you had from him at the time? And do you think either of you ever envisaged what was to come over the next 12 months?
It wasn't for me to give advice. The whole thing we did as a group, if I go back to the group that were in the club, we knew it was unsustainable for where it was as a football club, and we presented it and we did all that. The key for Wycombe was to find the right partner. And I'm not just saying it because they're here, and I'll say it anytime. What was so exciting was finding people that had the same core values of what Wycombe was. And having a few more spondoolies to actually deliver it is always an important thing. So for me, it wasn't about advice. It was just absolutely fabulous to watch the club be taken onwards, not over, but onwards by a group of people that had the same ethos. That was the single most important thing. The core values of the club have been maintained. Listen, they're going to have to adapt. Everybody knows that. The championship is a whole different ball game, and football going forward will be different for everybody. So everyone's going to find bits they don't like. There's no question of that. But the overall package and ethos of Wycombe going into the championship, I think it's just exciting of taking it in, because what we've done is we've started at the bottom of League Two and we've said, do you think we're good enough to go a bit higher? Do you think we're good enough? Well, last Monday we proved we are. So sod it. Let's go and have a go and let's see what we can do, because I think they're good enough.
Andrew, not only tell your wife I'm ready for another one of our lovely dinners in the country, but earlier in the year we actually got together with Dobbo, with Waitsy, with Gareth, and when we actually said we had a chance of going up in the championship, you looked at us like we were crazy.
No, that was nothing to do with the comments. That was just a natural look I have for you.
You're not the only one, my man. You're not the only one.
Yeah. Hey, listen, we all need a little bit of craziness in our lives.
Yeah.
Cool. Right, listen, I'll leave you guys to get on. Thank you very much indeed.
Fantastic. Well, Andrew,
Thanks, Andrew.
No worries. I'll see you soon. Okay.
Cheers.
no worries at all. Thanks very much, Andrew. Take care. Right, Pete, I'm having such internet difficulties. I'm going to come and join you in the boardroom, okay? But we are going to welcome our new guest in, and then I'm going to come and sit next to you, and it's just going to be easier to do things that way. So our next guest on Chairboys Live this afternoon, he has two names, really, because those of you that are active on social media will know that there's one Chairboys fan who kind of infiltrates the Opta Joe and the stats world, if you like, on social media, and he's always fighting our corner. So it's a pleasure to welcome on to the show Duncan Alexander, aka Oily Sam, who is the king of numbers in the football game, and it's a real pleasure to have him on because I know Pete is one of your biggest fans. Duncan, how are you doing there this afternoon?
Yeah, very good. Thanks for having me on. How are you?
Matt's having internet difficulties.
In the same building. There's some.
Well, yeah, but
I'm going to come through and join you. Bear with me.
All right, but Matt loves to sit in the gaffer seat whatever chance he gets. So he likes to post up there for Chairboys Live. So, which is understandable. I mean, anybody wants to sit in the same seat as Gareth Ainsworth, right?
Yeah. How are you?
I'm doing good, man. It's obviously very crazy. We've been in pretty much constant contact ever since I found out one of my heroes on the Twitter was an actual Chairboy. I've been a total fanboy of you for quite a long time, and then I found myself having text chats throughout the entire season. It's been fantastic.
Yeah. It's been amazing.
I'm on earphones. I'm gonna have to figure out how to hold on a second, real quick. You're gonna have to carry us for a second, Duncan.
Fine. I will. I'll talk about how. I think every Wycombe fan
give us some stats.
Well, what do you want to know? How the championship's going to look?
Yes, exactly. Tell me who's winning.
Well, everyone knows, or most Wycombe fans will know, that we don't or haven't recently made a lot of successful passes. There was we made 272 across the 3 playoff games. We scored 8 goals. And got promoted. Spain scored 8 goals and made about 4,000 successful passes when they won the World Cup. So there's different ways to play the game. But I think the key thing with the championship is the 3 teams, right, who made the fewest successful passes this season were Cardiff, Millwall, and Middlesbrough. Cardiff are in the playoffs. Millwall finished just outside the playoffs. All right, Borough flirted with relegation, but were fine in the end. So this idea maybe that some people might have that we're going up to the championship and suddenly it's this kind of, new level of football where everyone's playing it on the ground. That isn't necessarily the case. And even if they are doing that, it's not necessarily bringing them success. So, I don't think Wycombe's style of play is going to be any hindrance to them division up.
No. Catenaccio has always been a very successful style of football.
Well, exactly. The history of football is basically someone comes up with an idea and then someone else comes up with an idea to counter that, and it's just back and forth like that, really. It annoys me when people say to me, Wycombe, they're that team that hit it long. 2005-06, Wycombe were probably the best footballing team in the country. Didn't lose a game till Christmas under John Gorman, played amazing football but didn't get promoted. And ultimately when you look back at the league tables from 2005-06, no one's going to go, Wycombe didn't get promoted, but they were really good. They outplayed Grimsby on a Friday night. No one remembers that. I remember that. A few other people remember that. But, ultimately, the history books are the history books, and it will show that we've gone, like Andrew said a minute ago, gone from the bottom of League Two to the Championship in a pretty short space of time. And, it's incredible.
Yeah. Do you think one of the things why, we always hear they're very effective at what they do. I wouldn't want to watch that every week. Do you think nowadays people have gotten so used to and watched Barcelona do the tiki-taka style, the beautiful football? Do you think that everyone focuses maybe a little bit more on offensive tactics rather than defensive tactics? Because, having watched what Gareth and Dabo do, I can promise you they spend equal amounts of time on both sides of the midfield line regarding tactics. And it's just always been fascinating to me that most fans, most supporters just look at the offensive third or the middle third, not necessarily the defensive third. And it was pretty crystal clear from our back line and Gapey and Curtis and Namdi how well organized we are back there.
Yeah, you're totally right. I mean, I think obviously there's more glamour in going forward and scoring goals, but there's probably you see a lot of managers who probably over focus on that. You could argue that Manchester City neglected their defence a bit this season, and we saw the result of that. They lost 9 league games, which has never happened before to Pep Guardiola, and it just showed that it is about finding that perfect balance. And ultimately, it's a bit like teams when they get promoted to the Premier League. You can spend all your money on forwards and midfielders, but it's not really going to help. Loads of times, the lowest scoring team has stayed up in the Premier League. There's only one occasion, or maybe two, where the worst defence has managed to stay up. So, and one of those was like Fulham with a joint worst defence.
Yeah.
So ultimately, it's a bit of a cliche, but defending wins you games and championships.
Yeah.
Forget attacking.
Yeah, and one of the smaller one of the teams in the Premier League this year that's definitely outkicked their coverage is Sheffield United, and they play a similar style of football.
Yeah, they play pretty. I mean, the thing with Sheffield United, and I think this is the thing a lot of people will find with Wycombe next season, because the Championship is such a massive league. The amount of media attention we'll get and new people watching us is going to be massive. And I think people have certain ideas of teams. And if you watched like Wycombe in the first half at Fleetwood in the away game, that wasn't a team without attacking threat or planning. You know what I mean? It was a really kind of cohesive display. And that, Sheffield United were the same. A lot of people just were like, oh yeah, when were they last in the Premier League? Oh yeah, Neil Warnock was their manager. They probably just still smash it into the channels. That isn't the case. So yeah, I think people will be surprised at what Wycombe do next season.
Duncan, talk us through your background growing up supporting the Chairboys. This is your chance to showcase what a real wondrous fan you are. What are your earliest memories as a Wycombe fan?
Yeah, so I basically had a choice in Chelsea and Wycombe. Both my granddad from High Wycombe and supported Wycombe, and the other one from London and supported Chelsea. I chose Wycombe, which was the glamour choice at the time, because it was when Chelsea were getting gates for about 8,000. They don't like to talk about that, but and Wycombe would, probably not getting many at all. But I sort of went Lokes Park years a few times. I was probably a bit young to kind of appreciate. It's the sort of age when a football game feels like it lasts about 10 hours. So I think it was actually moving to Adams Park was about the time when I really got properly kind of hooked. And I didn't miss a home game between maybe 92 and 96-ish. So saw, and it's not a bad period to go to all the games, to be honest.
No, absolutely. And I mean, I happen to know your job is one of the coolest ones around, from what I perceive. I don't really know what you do with Optus Sports. I mean, but it just looks cool on the outset, and you seem to be doing a lot of podcast work. And I think football has really moved into this era now where people will really analyse it and will really look at stats and numbers. And I think, you look at what Brentford did with kind of their Moneyball recruitment and using facts and figures and not just watching the game of football for what it is. How do you describe what you do to heathens like me that don't really understand it?
Yeah, well, Ops is now part of a bigger organisation called Stats Perform, like sort of big global data technology company that covers US and Europe and worldwide. But ultimately, sports data is raw data, and it's what you do with it then. And I think what we've seen over the last 20 years, both with professional clubs and also in the media, is people learning how to use data. I mean, people know that, in American sports, particularly baseball, they've used data in a more kind of constructive way for a long time. But it's taken a while to get to that point with football. But I mean, you look at Liverpool, they basically are the perfect example now of a team that have used data and good management to get to a point where they've managed to beat rivals who've got much bigger budgets than us. And it's probably not the classic comparison between Wycombe and Liverpool, but I think there are similarities in some ways. But yeah, I mean, ultimately, my job is to kind of turn those numbers into stuff that's a bit more palatable for the general public, because no one really wants to look at a load of numbers on a screen or on a page. It's find some interesting stuff and seed it out there.
As I said earlier in your introduction, you tend to fight our corner quite often. Are there any other lower league fans or even Wycombe fans in the organisation you work around?
To be honest, there's not many kind of big club fans. There's Watford fans, there's a lot of Leeds fans. There's just lots of Leeds fans everywhere, even more now, given what's happened. But a good variety. There's an AFC Wimbledon fan. He was the guy that actually surfaced all those numbers that did, that Sky used before the playoff final that everyone remembers, with Wycombe 23rd in lots of categories and Oxford first. I think ultimately, if you're working mainly with Premier League data and stuff, it's best to it's useful to support a lower league team because you don't have any inherent bias. So the problem is when you get teams like Bournemouth who go up to the Premier League, then I do have bias against Bournemouth because I can remember their last minute equaliser against us on Boxing Day and things like that. So
amazing recollections. And I think, funnily enough, that tweet, the stat you mentioned about us being 23rd in the passing stats and Oxford being first, happened to be our best performing tweet of the whole playoff campaign. I think we just shared it with the caption, "We did it our way." And I think that just said to the football world, there is no right or wrong way of doing it. And we have no airs and graces about how football should be played or how it shouldn't be. I touched as well on... you appear on a lot of podcasts and blogs and things like that at the moment. And I know in particular, I think this has been such a good year for independent Chairboys content. And I know you've been a forum contributor back in the day, possibly when you have more spare time on your hands. You're not so active anymore. But people like Phil Catchpole with Ringing the Blues podcast, Tom Hancock and Chairboys Central, which I know you've spoken to once or twice. These guys couldn't have picked a better year, could they, to really be writing and talking about the Chairboys?
No, it's one of those years that will go down in history for a lot of reasons, but particularly for Wycombe fans. And what Phil and Tom do is amazing, really. It's that kind of extra layer that, I've said before, when I went to university, there was pretty much no way to keep in touch with Wycombe News. So my grandma used to cut up the Bucks-Free Press and post it to me. And so often it would arrive on the Monday and all the headlines would be like, Neil Smiley expects Wycombe to put up a good performance at Walsall and we'd have lost 4-0. And I'd literally just go straight in the bin. So, having kind of this audio and video and written content everywhere is amazing. And I think that is what, that's what's transformed a football fan's life in the 2020s compared to back then.
And the big question for me is, are you able to get to any games? I mean, as I say, you're so busy in your world of work. Were you able to get to many in the season just gone?
Went to a couple of, luckily went to the Lincoln game and brought my kids. My son, who for no explicable reason supports Arsenal, although I think he is wavering. He did describe Wycombe as "we" during the playoffs, but obviously that was the game with the Joe Jacobson hat-trick, including 2 from a corner, which he could live to 150 and he'll never see that happen again. So that's what you get at Adams Park, unique football.
Well, absolutely, and it's going to be it's going to be more incredible next year, I'm sure, in the Championship with some of the names of players and teams that are coming down. Pete, I know I said earlier, you're a big fan of Duncan's and the work that these guys do. And are you going to be hosting Duncan next season, or is
Yeah, we actually we brought Duncan and one of his pals from Opta out to the training ground earlier this year. We've actually tested almost every single statistics out there. Actually texted Duncan earlier this week and asked him to put in touch one of our guys, because Opta is what we feel Opta is the best, and so we're going to be going with that crew for our stat service. Also, he actually played quadrants with the boys. Listen, how did you finish?
Well, I came second last, but not last. So
No, but you did lose to an American.
It did, yeah. But I was wearing boots 2 sizes too small, like Beppe Signori from the 1990s. So,
Well, that's one of the things that's crazy to me is that back in the day, my Copas that I wore were like size 7.5, and now when I got to get them, they're like 9.5. They must come in different sizes. I don't even know, or did I just wear them that tight? I did have one request for a stat. How many Americans have kissed a piece of silverware on Wembley's ground?
you'll be stunned to learn that isn't actually a category that's recorded. But yeah, it must be pretty rare. I'm thinking more like Live Aid style things than football matches. But yeah, who knows?
Maybe was John Harkes on the Sheffield Wednesday team?
Yeah, he played for the Big Ron's team that beat United. Yeah, so yeah. But I don't think Roy Wegley did, and that's the real quiz.
There you go.
Former
Fantastic.
Tampa Bay
Duncan,
Rowdy.
thanks so much for joining us.
Thank you.
Yeah, our next guest is waiting for us in the waiting room. It's been so good to have you on. We're going to have you back on, I think, before the new season, when we need more of an insight into what Championship life really holds for us. But for now, Thank you so much for joining us, and I'm sure we'll see you very soon.
All right. Cheers, guys. See ya.
Great.
Cheers, Duncan.
Cheers, Duncan. And here we go. If the internet holds up, we have one more guest for you. Now, you might have seen, amongst all the coverage over the past 11 days, I think, since Wycombe Wanderers reached the Championship, our worldwide phenomenon has been picked up. There's a piece in the Chicago Tribune. There's been various pieces around the world. But there was one article, I think, that really resonated with a lot of Wycombe fans and really sort of taken aback by what a splash Wycombe Wanderers have made, not just in High Wycombe, not just in England, but around the world as well. And I'm delighted to be joined by the author of one of these pieces, Mr. Ramon Vargas. Ramon, how are you doing? Can you hear us?
I can. Thanks for having me on. How are you?
We're so good. Thank you so much for joining us. We've been in regular contact over WhatsApp. Ramon, you wrote a fantastic piece on the club, detailing really the past year, coming from a perspective of, no, I'm going to get the pronunciation wrong, and Pete, you're going to have to help me. A New Orleansian?
New Orleanian.
New Orleanian. Pete, yeah. This is why we need to rehearse before we come on the show. A New Orleanian, you see. And it really was fascinating because obviously Rob Couhig and his family, well known across New Orleans, and Rob had run for mayor previously. And I think it was so good to see the perspective, from that side of the pond, really, as to what has gone on over here over Wycombe Wanderers. What was the reaction to the article, Ramon? As I say, a lot of Wycombe fans were really impressed by the detail and that perspective of things. But how has the article been received over there?
It's been a tough, New Orleans is not a stranger to difficult times and heartbreak. And obviously 2020, like the rest of the world, has been very difficult. And, every 15 years, I think a seminal moment in everyone's life here was, Hurricane Katrina in 2005. And so what I'll say is that, 2020, it's impossible not to draw comparisons to that year. And I think people read it and you just kind of savored that there was some good news for somebody among us, and and that was the reaction from my mother who texted me and was like, I'm so glad you got to write about good news and something good happening to somebody, or somebody really doing something good, as opposed to suffering. And I think a lot of people who Rob Couhig owned the New Orleans Zephyrs. I mean, I grew up going to their baseball games. I think 4th of July is there uninterrupted for several years. Dating back to when they started at a baseball stadium at a university, and then there was a baseball stadium that was built in the town where I grew up, and so, I think a lot of people grew up kind of going to those games. I was one of them, lucky enough to be able to go to those games. And then obviously when he owned the New Orleans Storm, which I guess would have been in the equivalent of what would be the championship, I guess in those days, it was the second division in those days here in the United States. Of course, there's no promotion there. But even then, I remember I want to say it was like in the late 90s. So either the World Cup in France, and then there was the Women's World Cup in the United States, which the women's national team won. And I just remember spending, you would watch the World Cup games kind of in the morning. And then since it was the summer and I was off, you would just kind of go over to the stadium at night to watch the Storm play. And they had some high quality players that were like in CONCACAF qualifiers and things of the like. So I think that was it. I think it was a lot of nostalgia for people of a certain age that kind of grew up playing the game and watching the game, just kind of the bit of live soccer that you can kind of get. And that was really kind of the highest level team that New Orleans has ever had. And then I think a lot of people who knew him politically that just were surprised. I'd like to say I'm a pretty informed person. I mean, it's my job to kind of find out what's going on around town. And then when you kind of see, wait, Rob Kuig bought in English, bought Wickham Wanderers Football Club and what, they won promotion and you kind of get to all that. I think it was thrilling for me to report it. And I think a lot of people here, I think were thrilled to kind of read about it and find out.
Ramon, it's actually interesting that you brought up the Katrina example, because I know Matt will remember us talking about it when everything was going down. Mm-hmm. When it started happening, we felt like we were prepared because we ran businesses post Katrina and really knew how to focus on the fact that there would be a light at the end of the tunnel sometime. You don't know when it will show up. But you just have to keep putting every foot, you put your foot in front of the other every day, keep working hard, and just keep trying to get back to normalcy as quick as possible, even when you don't know when that's going to happen. And so, it was tough. It is tough. One of the things that we also felt was, I don't know. I mean, I don't know if you were there, but I'm obviously a big Saints fan. I wore some.
Is that a Taysom Hill jersey? Yeah. I recognize it.
But one of the absolute things that really brought people some joy post Katrina were the events that happened, and that match, that game against the Atlanta Falcons in the Dome, the first time back in the Dome. At that time, I didn't think I would see anything better than that. I was live. I was with my boys. We had been going to I've been in the terrace at Saints games for 25 years with the same guys. I didn't really think I'd ever experience anything that special. And then last Monday happened. It was,
the story was initially, the first draft I turned in was twice the length that ended up running. And one of the parts that unfortunately got cut in that I just kind of left on the editing room floor just to kind of to get it in at the length that they kind of gave me was a section that Phil Catchpole actually I spoke to him for the article, and he he had brought up that that your uncle, I guess, had mentioned that Hurricane Katrina and how life is bigger than football, and I think some of the ideas that I thought what kind of caught me is that and I know Pete has probably some insight into this. I don't know, Matt, to what extent you do. The idea, how quickly do you come back? How quickly to reopen is this huge political fight in the United States that just plays out in the most insane ways. And I thought what kind of I really wanted to address, but I guess I can say it now, was that I guess your uncle was like, I think kind of like prepared that, like, safety first. Let's just pick up next. Let's just pick up next season if that's the way it goes. And I thought that's like probably something that you don't necessarily hear from a lot of the things playing out here. So I think just kind of like some of the leaning on the Hurricane Katrina lessons and the concept of, I think, like you said, just kind of like what matters is not just kind of doing well in the short term, but getting through this and then being around for hopefully a long time afterward. I thought that was some of the stuff that kind of got left out, but Phil Catchpole, in my conversation with him, I think did a fantastic job explaining how I think how your family and its ownership of this team and its participation with this team kind of used the lessons drawn from Katrina and the whole concept. I think anybody here can relate to the concept of kind of sharing in the. I mean, I think some of the scenes of the Wickham supporters jumping around their living rooms when the final whistle blew, right? I think you can't help but get goosebumps. And I think, like you said, I don't mind saying this. It's weird for me because I covered the New Orleans Saints for a couple of seasons, and I think I did it objectively and fairly. I was a fan before, and I'm a fan again now of the football team. And I think there's been 2 times that I've cried at a sporting event, and one was I think the night that the Pump Block, Steve Gleason, the night that Pete mentioned when the Superdome reopened after Hurricane Katrina, and then the other time was when Garrett Hartley makes a field goal to send the Saints to the Super Bowl for the first time, and they won. Those are the 2 times that I just couldn't contain it. And I think when you see the people jumping around, holding each other, entire families kind of embracing, anyone here that knew the local connection and then saw those videos, you can't help but think about those times, and you know exactly how everyone's feeling, and especially at a time this happening at a time when I think it's here, if you're about my age, probably the two toughest things you've gone through that have hit very close to home, the storm and now. So I think a lot of people, even a taste of it. It was nice to just kind of interrupt the steady drumbeat of bad news. And I think, anyone that was a Zephyrs fan, a Storms fan, or happens to know the Kuig family, I think was very happy to, 1, learn about it if they hadn't heard about it, and 2, to just kind of for that to get attention and for something good to be happening to some of our people. I think that's what resonated.
Man, I got to tell you this. I almost teared up just thinking about those 2 games in the Superdome. I guarantee I was crying with you, man.
And I think you're, in my conversation with your uncle, it's impossible not to draw comparisons to that and some of the celebrations, especially among the supporters, and that they're supporters that have their entire lives waiting for a win like that. I think that's why people feel the closeness.
I heard actually, and that was kind of a bit of kismet that happened between me and Matt. Saturday morning, I woke up and just wanted to look at videos, so I tweeted out, "Show me your celebration videos." And I really spent a lot of the day crying watching them. They were so great. I'm choking up right now, really, honestly. Matt did a brilliant job editing all those videos, and I know it's just gone mad on social media, but my buddy said that it actually got covered on NBC Sports after the Premier League one of the nights earlier this week, and they showed the whole video. Were you?
I did not get to it. Depending on what day, so I get to watch most of the matches on the weekends. These days have just been kind of crazy during the week. But I know, obviously it was on my feed. And I just mostly follow, my feed is mostly like New Orleanians, right? And it wasn't, I think, people picking up either your retweet or like the clubs as it kind of like spread, like, oh, hey, like, a New Orleans guy owns this team. I think I got to see it throughout. I did not see it after the Premiership matches. I only got to watch the FA Cup matches this weekend.
Yeah, I got you. Speaking of that, what's your local soccer pub?
The thing is, I mostly follow the Mexican league, right? So that's why my parents are Mexican, I'm Mexican, so I'm mostly just watching it at my old man's house. But obviously, everyone's been to a Finn McCool's match. I've been able to, that's a pub here that always has all the European matches on. So whenever I can do it, I do it there. And then there's a Mexican place that we kind of go every now and then. We'll watch some of the national team matches at. So.
Yeah, Finn McCool's is my joint, man. I love that.
They were lifting them. I'm sure they were toasting them up to
Ramon,
you.
How would you sum up kind of the popularity of English football over there outside of the Premier League? Because I know one thing that has fascinated American fans is the promotion and relegation issues that you have in English football that don't exist over there. Pete and his family are, well-known Liverpool fans, and I think it was amazing really how much Pete knew of the lower leagues and the knowledge that he had. But we're sort of led to believe that outside the Premier League, the Championship and the lower leagues maybe don't have that popularity. But one thing that I think Rob has spoken to you about and spoken certainly publicly about is the potential of Wycombe Wanderers' worldwide appeal. And where you are 5,000 miles away, do you feel that a club like Wycombe Wanderers can really resonate and pick up supporters because of the streaming capabilities now and the merchandise and all the social media that's around it? Do you really feel Wycombe Wanderers can grab the attention of fans over there as well?
Absolutely. I think It's crazy. I'll talk to a couple of my friends, and all of a sudden, that you'll see that they'll be wearing like a Cardiff or like a Swansea kit, or it's like, where did you get the, like, how did you pick them up? It's like, oh, I was, y'all are gonna be in the FIFA game probably, right? And you're not gonna have to create the team. I mean, it's like FIFA will have like the Premier League, and I think they'll have the Championship, and they'll have Serie A and Serie B and things like that. So I think a lot of people, I mean, just kind of being in that game, I think will help. And then I think here, I know, Rob has confided, that there's going to be plans to kind of play up that connection now. And I think, and I think a lot of, I'd say the affiliation has to do is that, like, so, when I was growing up, like Derby County was pretty good and they were on TV pretty often, right? So like in the 90s, like Paulo Wanchope was like, scoring a lot of goals for them, and I was watching those teams. Right? So I've always just kind of taken an interest in how that club is doing ever since then. And whether they're not on TV, it's just I'll just punch in the soccer site and I'll always make sure to click on the Derby County result. Leeds United, right? I think when I was a little older, early 2000s, I think Robbie Keane's on that team, and they had I think Hercules on that team. If I'm mistaken, I apologize. But they were pretty good, and they went down, and I've always just kind of kept up with them. Newcastle United was good. So I think a lot of even if you caught them at a moment and then they kind of moved down, you just always kind of follow them. And so I think there's an opportunity there. And I think also just don't the idea that Wickham's going to be in FIFA now, and then all the players are going to be in FIFA now. I think it certainly will help kind of make people aware of the brand. And I mean, there's just a lot with social media. You do a great job of kind of getting the story out there. And so I know here the most common message I got from people that read the article was like, oh, I got to get a Wickham kit now, or I got to get, a Wickham beanie now, or whatever the merchandise they have. They've got, they got a fan in me. So I can tell the name of 3 guys right off the top of my head that were like, oh, I'm gonna be following Wickham in the championship now, just because a New Orleans guy and a Louisiana family are so deeply enmeshed in its identity right now.
That's why you need to negotiate some commission with Pete. You see, if you're generating fans for us over there, then there's got to be something in for you as well, Ramon. But no, I mean, genuinely, from our perspective, thank you for that article. It's fantastic, and I hope that's something that ongoing.
Oh, Matt.
No, my.
We'll keep in regular contact, and you probably have a show on your own just talking about the Saints and generally NFL sport and all sorts of things.
Yeah, anytime. Thank y'all, and I'll be following y'all, and hopefully updating every now and then on y'all's fortunes in the championship. I wish y'all the best, and anytime we can do anything, just give us a call.
Really appreciate it, Ramon. That was a great article, man.
Appreciate it. Thank you. Thank y'all for talking.
Yeah, it was wonderful. Thank you very much for coming on. I will speak to you soon. Top man. Pete, that's us done for the day, I think. Got a little bit more work to do. It's nearly 5 o'clock, so we might do it with a bottle of beer in hand, and then it's home time.
I gotta take a day off.
Pete, you have the weekend off. I tell you, go and relax. Maybe go and find a barber. So that beer that I see has been discussed in the comments.
I didn't mean from work. I meant from drinking beer.
Oh, right, okay.
Rob, Rob told me to take it a little easy this weekend, but he didn't necessarily tell me to stop working.
Okay, all right, good stuff. Well, no, we're always working. Thank you to everyone that's been leaving comments. Lots of questions about kit. We don't have a date yet, do we, Pete? Because of kit, because of manufacturing times. But
soon.
And if you keep watching, maybe Pete will drop some more clues about designs on Chairboys Live.
Maybe.
Thank you, everyone, for watching. Thank you to our guests, Andrew Howard, Duncan Alexander, and Ramon Vargas. Absolutely fascinating hearing a perspective from 5,000 miles away. And New Orleanians, yeah?
Yeah, man. The Who Dat Nation.
New Orleanians. Who Dat Nation. Fantastic stuff. That's us done for now then. Everybody have a great weekend. And as I say, this trophy will be down here at Adams Park tomorrow, 11 till 3. Please do come down. The shop will be open. There's not much in the shop. Most of it's at the warehouse for the online merchandise, but there are still some Gareth cutouts. There's still some souvenir programs. There's still some of the Mango shirts available, and of course your photo with the trophy. Do come down with a mask if you can, just to keep things nice and safe and secure for everyone. But for now, take care, Pete. I'll see you in about 30 seconds in the office. We'll debrief this show and start planning the next one. Take care for now.
Out the wick.
See you soon.